Good evening, everybody, and welcome. My name is Sabir, pronouns he, him, and I run events here at the Strand. Before we launch into a discussion of Jackie Davis's newest comics book, Vulnerability is My Superpower, I'd like to share a little bit of history about the Strand. The Strand was founded in 1927 by Benjamin Bass over on 4th Avenue's Book Row. Stretching from Union Square to Astor Place, Book Row gradually dwindled until, after over 94 years, the Strand is the sole survivor, now run by third generation owner Nancy Bass Wyden. We want to thank all of you for your support. Without our loyal community of book lovers, authors like Jackie and Huda, we wouldn't be here today, and we are so truly appreciative of it. And so, tonight we are thrilled to have with us Jackie Davis for the launch of her newest book, Vulnerability is My Superpower, an Underpants and Overbites Collection. Jackie lives in Rochester, New York with a bunch of happy houseplants, squishy plush toys, and her husband Pat. He's the exhausted purple character in her comics and an artist too. Jackie has been drawing chubby things with googly eyes her whole life, much to the disappointment of her art teachers, but now to the delight of the internet. She discovered comics and her passion for them around 2015 and has been reading, writing, and drawing them ever since, launching her popular webcomic, Underpants and Overbites. She has self-published 2 comics collections, and her third book, Vulnerability is My Superpower, is out tomorrow and the book we are here to celebrate tonight. Joining Jackie in conversation is Huda Fahmy. Huda is a hijab-clad Muslim woman who was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. She is the author of the internationally successful books Yes, I'm Hot in This, The Hilarious Truth About Life in a Hijab, and That Can Be Arranged, a Muslim love story. Between drawing and Googling breathable cotton dresses, Huda enjoys spending time at home in Houston with her husband Jihad and their son. Huda continues to post art on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook under the handle at Yes I'm Hot in This. And so, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Huda and Jackie to the stage.
I can't hear
Hi.
you.
Okay, yeah,
Oh.
yeah. Did I scare you? I'm sorry.
I scare easily. It's fine.
No. I accidentally was muted. But anyway, how are you, Jackie?
Good. How are you? Thank you so
Good.
much for being here. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me. I feel like we got to chat a little bit before we went live, and I was like, oh man, did we blow all our conversation topics?
That was my exact thought. I was like, oh, that story was so good about the person and the thing. But...
Yeah, the possum babies. We should just I get self-conscious retelling stories. So I'm just gonna we should just retell some of those stories to the delight of the people watching, I think.
Okay. I think my favorite question that Huda already asked was, have you ever been recognized in public? And I have been. And one time I was parallel parking on my own street and I was doing like a really bad job because I'm always like too far away from the curb. And then like, it's a bad time. My car's like this really ancient boat. And then my window was down and this woman was like, I think you're good. Like, I think you got it. And then she was like, but I love your comics, by the way. And then I just wanted to like melt into oblivion.
I thought that was so cute. I love it because it was just a casual, like you didn't get stopped really. I mean, you got caught doing something that would have, I think, fit perfectly in your comics, and you got recognized. That'd be so cool. I am fangirling a little bit. I was fangirling even before, and I hope it wasn't like too obvious. But I love your stuff. I love your work. When I got this, I was just so happy. And people can see. I heard this to Jackie already, but I tagged every comic. I mean, it should be really more, but I ran out of stickies. Not gonna lie. This is full, and now it's like this tiny. It's like tagging all the work, all the comics that I was like, me too. I wanted to ask, there was a comic where you're like, you go back in and it was like, I think you in a cave and you were really like trying to dig up these memories and things that you think like, do they work? Do they work as comics or do they work as there's a story that you can tell. And do you remember what I'm talking about? Where you're
yeah, it's like mining for gems
Yes.
inside myself.
Yes. And so I have a really bad memory. And it's like, especially when it comes to my childhood, there's only very little things that I can remember. But every time I read one of your comics, especially of your childhood, and I'm like, I did that too. But I had to take, reading your comic to remind me that, yeah, and I love that feeling. And I was going to ask, is how hard is it to like remember stuff like that goes in, that just stuff that happens when you were younger, that because you really do capture childhood, and it's just wonderful, charming. I love it. How do you do that? How hard is that?
Yeah, I definitely don't have one of those brains that's like linear. When someone's like, where was I 2 New Year's Eves ago? And then I'm just like, I don't know. Like, all I remember is like, my grandma's house, she had this drawer on her kitchen floor all the way at the bottom. And then it was just filled with toys for the kids, because the kids were the only people like, small enough to enjoy the drawer. Yeah. And so I just think about that. And then I'm like, oh yeah, that just exists, but it's kind of detached from other memories. And so I just have this soup, and really it's not so much how hard has it been to recall the memories. It's just accepting that they're out of order and like not being self-conscious about it. Because I think some storytelling just seems so perfect. Like when I read someone's autobiographical account, they're like, it was November the 4th and it was 62 degrees out. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, am I like an inferior person? And so I just go for feelings and try to create that. But I really am into collections, because then I can try and like make enough. But I remembered when I was a kid, very recently, my brother and I played this game. We were really bored one afternoon, and it's like you, my memories aren't there. And then all of a sudden they'll like, oh, I remembered that I used to dip Butter Udder's feet in water and then put them in the freezer and then suck on them like popsicles. And I like hadn't remembered that in years. Like I was like getting, opening my freezer, and I was like, oh, like
just what came back to you, just like this memory.
And this memory with my brother where he was like, we were like, you want to play a game? And he was like, yeah, okay. And then I was like, I'm going to squirt a condiment into your mouth and you have to guess what it is. And then I just remember I poured the salsa too heavy and it all just poured into his mouth. And he was like, salsa. And so then I'm like, but it's just capturing it. That's the hard, like, it's getting it's like a peephole.
Yes. And you have to figure out how to like turn that into, how do you tell that in a way that other people might also find funny? I don't know. Sometimes like I'll have memories and I'll be like, I don't know how to turn this into a comic. Like, I don't know how does that translate? I don't know how to do that. And then
or like, it's like, you don't want to have to over explain it.
Yes.
And then there's like no payoff either.
I've done that. I've over-explained comics in comics. And I'm like, this just isn't funny. I don't got time. I'll just post it anyway. And then it does horribly. And I'm like, I know. I know, I'm sorry.
They're not going to remember the bad ones, They're just, I mean, maybe if there's like 200 bad ones in a row. But
you'd be surprised. The memory, some of these followers. You posted this 2 years ago. I'm like, I don't remember. Just accept the free stuff. It's free. God's sake.
Yeah, or like the really subtle, like, I really liked this the first time it came out. Like,
well, thanks for passively aggressively commenting. I appreciate it. It's not gonna live in my mind for the rest of the day. So the book is called Vulnerability Is My Superpower. And one of the things I want to know is there a comic I don't even want to call it a comic, even though that is what it is, because you call it's like a diary. It's a comic diary, and it's so much more than just a comic. Anyway, but I'm just going to say comic. But anyway, is there one in there that was really hard to share? That was just like, or one that you even couldn't share because you're like, this is too vulnerable. Like I can't share that.
I mean, if I didn't put it in there, I already forgot. Like, I don't know. Okay, right. But there's one about being like two people where I'm like strong and weak, and I like one person and I don't like the other person, and they kind of fight. That one, I really wanted to put it in there, but it was really hard to write because it was really hard to find an ending that was true, because I think a lot of comics in my early stages, I like ended a lot of things with certainty, like, and I'm all better.
Right.
there's,
And that's not
oh,
real life, and we don't always, yeah. But no, I think you ended it well. I read it, and it was. I think that's the thing that I think we in this era are, and it's you and me and a lot of other illustrators and artists and content creators, is maybe trying to get over the fact that like things aren't always going to be solved. And I'm as I'm writing this is still not solved. Like, I'm still going through this, and I think I'll always forever go through this. And the fact that you're so honest about that is, you wrote this in there, and just said, I'm not alone. I don't feel alone when I read that. And just knowing that it's okay to feel that way. So I don't know, it makes me feel, just good. And so as hard as it might be for anyone to share their vulnerabilities, I'm so grateful that you do, and that you write it the way that you do. And it's just wonderful. But let me, I could go on. It's not even a question in there. There's not even a question.
I'm gonna have to watch this again just for that part.
I'm just here to talk about how much I love you. Can you tell us if there's a favorite comic in the book? I'm gonna look at it and tell you.
Yeah, I'm like, what did I put in this thing?
I do love all the ones about your grandma and grandpa.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that we're kind of getting closer to that age every year. And I'm like, I hope my grandkids appreciate that about me too. And now I just want to collect jelly packets.
You just want to be a cool grandma?
I want to be a cool grandma, grandpa. I think because I had the same relationship with my grandparents. So I didn't know them for a long time, and then they moved here from Egypt, and there was definitely a language barrier. And then all I can tell you is like my grandma or my grandpa, I think it was my grandpa, loves clocks. And it was like, have you ever seen that movie Hook? And there's that room full of clocks. Every time I went to their house, I just thought of that room. It was just like, and they're everywhere, and it's like,
wow, that's like my grandparents on my dad's side. They're from Austria.
Yeah.
And like my grandma was born in like the Czech Republic, and then they moved to America when they were like much older, and there was a language barrier, and their house was filled with clocks.
No way.
They had like a cuckoo clock with little like pine cones that hung down, and we'd sleep over at their house.
Oh man.
Oh yeah, you can't touch it because you could pull it.
And that's the whole time thing. Oh my god. My grandma was like tutti. She would always say tutti, 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 and you always knew you were in trouble when she called you that. You're like, oh, I'm sorry, what did I do?
There's a lot of early bedtime at Oma and Opa's house.
You're just awake and it's like the sun is still up. Like, I'm 21, Grandma. I don't need a nap. And, oh man. And they had this fluffy cat. This like white fluff. You know those like, I don't know if they're Persian or whatever. Those, really fluffy white cats. And my grandfather used to comb her with the cat brush and collect her fur and just turn it into like pillows.
No.
So I want to say creepy, but then it just kind of became like, oh, that's his thing. That's Grandpa. I'm like, that's his thing. It's weird, but that's what I'll remember.
Yeah, one time my grandma Oma, I haven't written about them yet, but these are like my mom's grandparents. But yeah. Oma, one time I was like, yo, Oma, can I get like, because she would knit stuff, and I was like, can I get an outfit for one of my cows? And she was like, yeah, all right. And then she just took she took like a like a bandana. I got one here. And she just like I didn't plan this, but she just held it. She held it in the middle and then cut the top off and put it over my cow like a poncho. And I was like, this sucks, Grandma.
It didn't have to be good. You didn't say anything about it being haute couture. That's so funny. Oh my god. I was really bad at running the mile back in middle school. And so to encourage me, my grandmother came to run the mile with me in class.
No.
And I was like, oh, if I don't at least be my grandmother, I will never live this down. And I booked it. I mean, I barely passed, but I had to at least be my grandma. And it was like, thanks for coming. And everyone's like, the gym teacher would be like, that's Huda's grandma. You gonna let Huda's grandma beat you? And we're like, no, was like, no. It was the best incentive to run. But yeah.
Is that in your new book that's coming out?
No, I gotta write these down. Like I said, I forget a lot of stuff. So just like talking to you, I'm like, oh, grandma stories. Gotta write that down. No, she's awesome. But she was like an excellent ping pong player. She used to tell us she was in the Olympics. Of course, I don't know if she was. Was that just an exaggeration? I don't know. I can't look it up. But yeah, she's like, I'm in the Olympics for ping pong. Like, I believe it.
Like, okay, grandma.
All right.
Show me a picture. Well, it's hard with making comics too, because like there's a certain amount of like labor that goes into it. Like you have a set of characters. You have Susan and Jihad and your mom and Darius, and then it's like if you're like, oh, gotta add another grandma. Like I want, when I first started this comic, I had this vision of expanding the universe like The Simpsons, and then now I'm like, whew, man.
That's a lot.
I drew a grocery store cashier. Like I think that's pretty good.
Are there any characters or any people? Are a lot of your characters based on real people? Like I know there's like some of the characters in the book that are illustrated as your friends, who I've seen make some repeat, but they could just be their easy characters to draw. I don't know. Do they represent real people?
The like Pat's the main purple one, and then like the other characters, they sort of like. Oh, and Tess, she has poofy orange hair and like a little headband, and then some of the other characters sort of like they're more like an amalgam of friends. But if I added more, and my first boyfriends mostly look like my first boyfriends because I don't think they're really ever going to find this. But if they did, I can't imagine they'd be like, "Hey,
that I dated." Do you have to ask for permission before you write about them?
Oh, I mean, I ask for permission from anyone who I write about specifically, like Pat. I'm always like, hey, do you approve this? I mean, I have a feel for what he'll approve, like no matter what. But then there's some stuff where I'm like, eh? And he's like, no, like don't write about my belly button. And I'm like, okay, all right.
That's hilarious. I do the same thing. So I was thinking about if I added my grandma, I'd probably have to ask her, and she would probably say no. She is a very, very like into conspiracy theories and like, no, if you draw me, they'll find me. And I'm like, I don't know how they would, but okay, I guess.
That's like I write about like I can write about my childhood, but I always try to write it like about myself, and then it seems okay to be like I made one recently that was like, when I was growing up, we had ants. Like my parents tried to kill them, but it didn't happen. And then my parents weren't like, don't write about us. Like they're like, all right. But it's not like, my mom is afraid of the dark. Then she'd be like, hey, what is this?
No, my mom is very much like, if you write something about me, it has to be true. And I'm like, okay, that makes it very hard because I do exaggerate sometimes, and some of the jokes are like, maybe if she said this, it would have been funnier. But yeah, everything I have to write, except for when I specifically told her I'm writing something about her and Bitcoin, which did sort of happen, but then I took it to another extreme where she gets kidnapped by and that didn't actually happen, and I have to tell people that. No. Do you ever write stuff where you're like, this is what if this happened? Like it didn't actually happen, but do you ever try to do that? Or most of your work, all of your work, is it based on like real life experiences?
Like 99% of it is based on real life experiences. When someone's like, the idea that someone can write fiction is like beyond my comprehension as a human being. Yeah. Like I can only write because my life writes my own work.
Yes, I know.
But if I was like, a professor in the 1930s with a hankering for Doritos, it's like, dude, what?
I can't even come up with another name. Like I created the sister character, and who is based on my actual sister, and I'm like, I should probably come up with a different name. Like my fart, I can't. My brain farts, and I'm like, it's gonna be her name. I'm like, Nood, I'm so sorry. This character is based off of you, but I don't know what to do. It's because the character will do stuff that Noor doesn't do, and Noor will be like, hey, my coworkers are reading this, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I have no imagination. People think I'm creative, and I'm really not. That's why my character's named after me.
Yeah, it's basically just like photography, but it's drawings of your life. You're like, I just take a picture of what my morning looked like with my pencil and fade it. Do you want me to write something? Whoa. No.
And I often wish that I could just go for walks with you, because I'm just like, not even saying, like, you don't even have to talk to me. I just want to watch you go on walks and turn things that you find into characters, like that you find on the street, or you find the coolest stuff. I'm like, how does she find all this stuff? Like, even just to take home, like a potato on the floor in one of your comments. Like, I don't find half the stuff that I'm like, I'll go for a walk like Jackie. And I'm like, this is too clean of a street. What is this? I can't find anything. I would love to just go for a walk. Like, how often do you go for a walk every day?
I walk every morning. Well, I go on commutes because I work from home, so I like pretend that I go to work, and so then I like eat breakfast, maybe take a shower or whatever if I'm slimy, and then I'll go for a walk, and then I come back and I'm like, time for work. And so every morning, and then sometimes I take a lunch walk, and then sometimes I commute home at night, but it's just like a block, and
that's just one block. Like, I feel like you live in this wonderland of amazing like treasures that you just, every time you go out for a walk, I'm just like, that's new. But it's like the same pumpkin you've been writing about. Like, have they changed their pumpkins, by the way? Those poor rotting pumpkins.
I just shot a video of me, and I have this pumpkin on my porch that's so soft, and it's me like stepping on it gently, and I'm saying, who's a good pumpkin? You are. And then it's like squishing it. But no, it's just one block. It's like it's like a 10 block area, but yeah, I go for a walk, and then I live right by a playground.
Yeah.
And I live by like a bunch of free libraries. So people are there's a lot. Rochester, I would say more than any other city, has super high turnover for like there'll be like a pile of stuff on the street, and then like 4 people will be at the pile, and they'll be like, ooh, nice lamb, good find. And then you're like, thank you. And then someone else is like, hey, do you see the other candlestick? Is it on your side? And it's just very, I don't know. It's just, even my whole life, like my relatives are from here, and someone would always be like, hey, I found this coat on the ground. Like, whose body does this fit? And then the kids will like line up, and they're like, give it to that one. And so
I think the closest we come to that is when people just put stuff out on big trash day, and like, but I never see any. It just, you wake up, it's like the shoemaker's elves, except like the opposite. And you go out, and it's just, the stuff is just gone. And I'm like, but how did I literally just put this out? How did you who came by my house and took this thing from my house? Like, it was just, so that's the closest I think I can come to this, and I don't have a grumpy neighbor. Honestly, I'm afraid of my neighbors, so that might be. I just kind of like walk and try not to be seen, but they're not bad. I just don't even give them a chance. It's my own weird fear of other people. Like, this is fine. There's a barrier here. There's a camera. Can't touch me. Oh man, but you got a grumpy neighbor who waves back at you now.
There's a new installment too. It's this dog that like screams super loud, and then like, it's barking, but it's like, when a kid is screaming at the top of their lungs, and they're like, it's like, but it's a dog doing that, and it's only like one house away. And then I'll just be writing, and then I'm like, so yeah, there's a lot of activity in this neighborhood.
Do you get inspiration from that? Like, when you have like a writer's block, you go out and walk, and do you get inspiration from the neighborhood?
Oh, definitely. And just the people in the neighborhood, and I can see them. I grew up in the suburbs. It was very quiet and very like, why is someone outside my house? Kind of.
Yeah,
There's
that's where I am. That's me. That's my.
right now I'm like watching a man with a ponytail, like sitting on his porch, and then there's like kids that always there's this man that lives in the house 2 houses down, and he walks to the playground with his like, I don't know, niece or something, and then he stands at the stop sign, and then every time a car stops, he likes to wave the car past as if he's like being polite.
He's the air traffic. He's the car traffic.
But it like deeply confuses the drivers because he really like he'll wait for the car to go all the way down the street, and then he'll be like, after you. And then I'm like, oh, I love that guy. And he like used to have short hair, now he's got long hair, wears flip-flops. It's great. Yeah. So it's very inspiring to see all the humans. And sometimes Pat's like, I just want to live in the woods. And I'm like, what would I do without all my creatures out there?
My friends. They're my friends, Pat.
My friend.
Okay, what's his name? Flip-flop guy.
yeah, flip guy. Stop sign guy. He's cool. He's cool.
He's my friend. Yeah, I get people who knock on my door to tell me that, hey, somebody was taking pictures at your house. Oh, thanks. Someone was taking pictures at my house? Great, I'm not sleeping tonight. That's like why? That happened 3 years ago, and I still think about it.
Wow, that's so spooky.
That's my neighborhood. I think my husband said the only thing that makes sense is it was probably an appraisal guy, people from the HOA. Freaking HOA. Anyway, it's like if I had an arch nemesis that wasn't like an Islamophobe, it would be the HOA. Like just for no reason. And the HOA is just one person in my mind.
Right, you paint your door the wrong color, and they're like,
your garage needs painting. It's white. What do you mean? And it doesn't look. What are you talking about? Sorry. Freaking HOA. Anyway, okay. What is the weirdest thing that you've ever felt compelled to turn into a comic?
I mean, I am compelled to turn that sucking on butter others' feet thing into a comic, and I haven't
looking forward to it.
Haven't made it yet. Probably the weirdest one was about how I love like wearing other people's clothes and sleeping in their beds and being in their shoes and stuff. And then I love, at first it used to really disturb me when I'd make a comic that half the people would like get angry about. And then I'd feel like I failed. I made one about how some people are like a couch with a plastic cover and I just can't get to know them. And then a lot of people commented and they were like, I'm the couch with the plastic cover. And at first I was like, oh, and then I was like, oh, this is a healthy discourse. And so the comic I made about me like loving being in people's stuff, like half the people were like, yay, I just want to like, touch all the hoodies. And then other people are like, you're not coming over to my house. Like stay away.
All right. No. I wasn't planning on it, random John, but all right. Oh man, I was gonna say something. Oh yeah, there's I think you posted it on that. I think it's one of the books. It's one of the early ones. 9 things I love that nobody else does. I laughed, but I was also like, no, Jackie, no. And I think the worst one was when a toilet seat has been warmed by another butt. I think that's one of my worst. Like if I do, like, nope, gonna go use another toilet. Like this is not.
I love that. I mean, think about the commitment it took to heat that toilet seat up.
No, I can't. But I laugh. But it's still funny to me. Like even if I don't do that, or if I don't think, I love that somebody like that you can find this, that you like this. And I'm sure there's something that I enjoy that I like that nobody else. But that's something I really admire is that you've laid it all out. Like you actually share it. And I'm like, I'd be too scared to say that. I'd be way too scared to say that. Like, how do you get over that? How do you get over that? And it'd be like, I don't care. I'm going to say it anyway.
Oh, I've just been like this my whole life. Like I just, some might call it oversharing, but I think if combining oversharing with like a sense of writing just makes it a really powerful story. But yeah, when I was a kid, like I felt like I just wanted to talk about everything. And it doesn't feel like, I don't feel weird. Like, I don't even feel like I'm going out on a limb. I'm just like, oh, hey, I love when a toilet seat's been warmed by another butt. And people are like, I would never share that. That is my deepest, darkest secret. But recently I was, my parents came to town. I hadn't seen them in like years because of the pandemic. And then I was like, tell me about me as a baby. And they were like, oh, you learned to talk when you were like, 10 months old, you were just talking, and then you didn't walk till you were like 18 months old. Like you just bossed everyone around, and like you didn't even, we were worried that you like couldn't walk because all you did was look at things and talk about them in like full sentences. And I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
But that doesn't, lead to this compulsion on sharing. But I do feel like I've just been telling stories forever. And to me, it honestly doesn't even feel that vulnerable. I did write something yesterday, and I just posted online about like, it's like a letter to my childhood self. And it's like, don't let anyone tell me or don't let anyone tell you, don't be small, stay small for anyone or something like that. And then I wrote it, and then I was like, if I think too hard about my stuff, it kind of embarrasses me. Like, because I feel like I almost write in like I don't use big words. I don't use like poetic sentences. I'm just like, sometimes I feel like a lobster. And then if I think about it too hard, I'm like, oh my gosh, what I make is like, kind of bad. And then I'm like, oh no, I just have to just make it, and people like it, and they love this sort of.
There's always that little voice, not so little voice that makes you feel like that. Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean.
But like, it's so hard to know how someone will read it because I'm the one who wrote it. So then I write it, and I'm like, I don't know, and people seem to like it.
I'm just gonna.
Do you feel like that when you write stuff?
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean, I will. If I listened to that, I wouldn't post that like voice. I probably would post half the things that I post. And I do this thing where I have to, I don't know if this happens to you, but you've talked about the two people kind of that exist together as, in you. And I feel like that too. And so there's that one part of me that's like, this sucks. No one's going to like this. This is not funny. And then there's the other voice that's just like, it kind of takes control of my finger and just hits post, haha, you can't do anything about it now, it's already out there, like it literally is like this. And I'm like, the other person will be like, no, I guess so, and then you just have to do it. And it's like this weird, but it's very clear, conversation that's going on inside my head. Yeah, it happens all the time. It's just hard.
I get caught in this part where like, no matter what I choose, it's wrong. So like I have to take the finger and just like, even Instagram, it's like, do you post one image or do you post 4 swipey images? It's like, whatever you choose is wrong. And then I just have to be like, I'm done.
Submit, share.
Yeah.
Oh God. The captions are the hardest part for me. I have to sit there and figure out, what am I going to type? Can I just write today's comic? But no, people expect like, sometimes I just want like a whole explanation. And I'm like, they'll talk about it in the comments section, which, God, I don't know about your comment section, but mine can get so intense. I can't read my comment section. Do you read your comment section? Do you have Pat read your comment section?
Oh, I don't read my DMs. Like, so that's kind of like the comment section. Honestly, the DMs are mostly just like, really, really nice. Yeah. But if I read them, it would be like a full-time job. So I like, when you click on one and it's like this long about how you've like saved someone through their divorce or something. And then it's like, I'm so happy, but I can't just send I can't send, but I mean, I would know what to say, but like, I'd love to say it, but it would take me like an hour, and like, it seems worse to send like a heart, like,
can I just write you're welcome and then just leave? I've read this. I can't write. I don't know what to say. It would take an hour to figure out what to say. Yeah.
So I can't go in there. But the comments for the most part, they're pretty positive, and I like, usually someone defends something, if someone's like, boo, this. Oh, my favorite comment recently was like, I'm doing this 100 comics, not in 100 days, because I only finished like 82 comics in 100 days, which is like good enough.
Good enough. It's like a B minus. That's great.
But I made a comic and then I wrote, 80 out of 100. And someone was like, don't give yourself an 80. And then someone explained it. And then the other person was like, I'm going to go hide now. And like,
You're better than that. 80. 85 at least.
But what if I did rate all of my comics? Hey, internet, here's your comic today. 7 out of 10.
That'd be great. And then they'd probably just argue about whether or not it really was a 7 out of 10. And you'd be like, and this is called engagement. This is how you get people to comment on you. No, I'll sometimes, once or twice, what's really brave is putting a misspelling, allowing that to actually go in and go, and then watching as like there's 200 comments of just people correcting your mistake, and you're like, take that, Instagram algorithm.
What if you do it on purpose to like?
That's what I'm saying. I'll do it. I'll do that on purpose, and then they'll be like, actually, you forgot the G in the weird thought, and I'd be like, oh, I did.
Just shoots you right to the top, and you're like, that's good content right there.
I'm playing the game. So it's great. One day I'm just going to spell my own name wrong, see what they do. Because that's like one of my biggest, it's like people just spelling my name wrong or seeing it. And they'll be like, oh no, I spelled my own name wrong. Guys, tear me apart in the comments.
Like, I'm who I always hated.
Exactly. Oh man. Let me see. Okay, I'm looking at some. Okay. How have you been during quarantine? How's that been? During the pandemic. I know that's such a weird, how could it have been? But
I would say at the beginning of the pandemic, I bought like a tremendous amount of cold medicine from my grocery store because I was like, I don't know, vitamin C. And weirdly, I haven't gotten a cold, which is nice. But honestly, certainly the pandemic has affected me as it has affected everyone, with like not a lot to look forward to and just this really weird, I feel like there's a point now where I'm like, hey, we're going to be okay. Like, it's not going to last forever. But I would say maybe 6 months ago, I was like, what if this is like for 5 years, And now I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I'm going to go camping and have a good time and not worry about what is happening to the world in the 3 days that I'm gone. But mostly, I've been self-employed for like 3 or 4 years now. So that part was like, a lot of people struggled with working from home, and I was just like commuting and, putting a load of laundry in and then finishing some comics. And so to me, I was like, that was kind of great. And then weirdly, the upside is like, I'm super, super social and I love hanging out with people, but I didn't realize how many things I was attending that I like didn't really like. Like I would meet someone at the grocery store, like who I vaguely knew, and they'd be like, hey, come to my art show tonight. And then I'd be like, okay. And then I'd go to it and be like, oh, I don't want to be here. Like, and so all that got cut out, and then I was forced to like bear my own company, and I do feel a lot more at peace. Like I'm very much looking forward to more activities, but there's a certain like, hey, there's a thing happening half an hour away and you're only going to get there half an hour before it ends. And before the pandemic, I would have been like, I'm going. Yeah. And then now I'm like, nah, next time.
Nice. And you've also, you've gotten to publish this whole book during that. So that's an excellent thing, I think, to accomplish during such a hard time. It's hard, and it's, I don't know, I've depressing, to be honest. Just there are definitely bouts of it. So to be able to complete something like this is great. So congratulations on being able to say like, I did this.
I was going to add, I feel really fortunate in the pandemic because my job is my escape.
Yeah.
And so I just escaped into comics some more, and it was kind of what people needed, and it was what I needed. And I'm really fortunate that my business could survive because I'm just a person at a desk who eats snacks and then draws stuff.
Yes. That's my newest. That's what I'm going to write under my bios now. Just
What?
Just a person at a desk eating chips. That's my bio.
That's so good.
I was gonna ask if anything. I'm looking at the next question. It said, "Has anything happened that you're like, I really need to turn that into a cartoon?" But we know there's Butter Udder sucking on Butter Udder's feet.
I have a lot of ideas. Like they're just piled up in notebooks, and then it's just which one jumps out at me. And like it's like a bunch of fish swimming in a fish tank, and then when I think of a new idea, I like add new fish in, but they're all like kind of gray. And then one day I'll be like, okay, I got to make a comic, and then like a yellow one comes, and I'm like, ooh, and then I make that. But yeah, just all kinds of stuff. I'm working on one about like, it's like some nights I dream of dragons, and then it's like me riding a bunch of dragons, and it's like we play games and go on adventures, and they don't talk, but they always know exactly what I need. And then I'm like crying, and the dragon is like petting me, and then at the end I say, I wonder if the dragons ever dream of me.
Oh.
And then I'm like, has that been written before? Like
I haven't heard it. That's wonderful. And I'm just like, as you're saying that, I'm like, well, that's just a wonderful thought. Like that's so charming. I want to see this comic. Do you do mostly watercolor now? Have you, because like, I mean, I do digital. All my stuff is digital. Do you do everything watercolor?
100% watercolor.
How do you upload? Like, what's your, I know it's going to be a little, I don't know if it's too technical but I'm sorry guys, I'm going to take a little bit. This is me asking some artist questions here. How do you upload? Do you just like take a picture of it or scan it or?
Yeah, I scan it. So like I paint it. I have a bunch of paintings right here. I'll show you like a big pile. Mm-hmm. Let's see. So this is just what they look like.
I'm always surprised by how big you show us before, and I'm always surprised at how big they are.
Oh, here's one like on dinosaurs that I made.
So you're
Jurassic.
So I love it.
And then here's like this one about like being a dog hero. Here's an example. So this is her. She says, "Life is so nice-ical on my bicycle," which is like a real quick one. And I know why it's so funny. It's like I love it. But like the text, I was lazy and I was like, I'm gonna paint it in, and then on Photoshop I'll like select it and delete it and like make it white, so it's like white. But this is like mostly it looks exactly like what it looks like. Oh yeah, here's one about therapy, and that's just like what it looks like.
Beautiful.
I mean, Photoshop is cool because every once in a while I'll like change a sentence, or like at the end I'm like, but yeah, I just paint everything because I tried digital, and I don't understand color on digital. Like it just, I'm like, when I paint, I'm like, and I'm reading a book on like painting right now that's like all about like lighting when the sun comes up and stuff, and I'm like, yeah. And then on digital, I'm just like, and like, what size are you making it? What are you doing? You're on like a rectangle square.
I know some artists do like pixels, 1080 by 1080 or something. I'm like, that's so big. I'm just gonna do inches. 15 by 15 is good. I don't know.
Well, that's big. That seems big.
I don't, it could, I don't know what I'm doing. I learned on YouTube, I need to educate myself a little bit.
I don't know what I'm doing either. Every time I make a comic, I'm like, okay, so it's like 2 3/4 inches wide and 3 2 3¼ inches tall, and then I like draw the rectangles, and then I draw all the fractions, and then I add them up and like circle them. And I'm like, man, if someone can think of an easier way. And Pat's like, I did. It's a template. And I'm like, get that out of here.
I was talking to somebody and when I was working on my graphic novel, and it was another illustrator, and she was like, yeah, I just used this template. And I'm like, huh, like, why did I think of that? So just like, that makes a lot of sense. Oh,
were you like you have like the page size, and then within it, did you just make panels?
Like I have to sketch stuff out before I put it on digital, just to make sure, I don't want to like draw something. And so I'm like, when I sketch, it's so dumb. You're gonna really I feel like you're just gonna look at me, and the way you think of me is just gonna drop. But okay, I'm sketching without really understanding how it's gonna look on the page, and so when I try to translate it onto the digital page, it's completely off in terms of like the bleeding, the edges, the border. It doesn't, and I have to like, I'm like, oh, why is this not fitting the way I thought? And now the page looks, and it just didn't make sense. And she's like, I had to just print out this template, and she like literally here. Okay, it's gonna be. She just sent me this template where she's like, and now you know how to fit in your panels, and if you want, and she's like, that's it. And I was like, like, that makes so much sense. Like, I felt so angry. I was just drawing on blank paper, and everything was different sizes. And anyway, sorry, I just got a little, I want to say technical, but really that was not technical.
No, like I sell prints through my online shop, and it like legit took me like 4 years to be like, okay, 8 by 10 inches is like the size of like a frame. So I should make them 8 by 10 inches. So then, right, you can buy it and put it in your frame.
Right, that makes sense.
And then I'm like, okay, so like, how do I put it on the paper? And then I like my uncle, I would always ask him, and he'd just be like, what? Like, it's just give it an inch border. And then I'm like, but on what side? And he's like, all the sides. And I was like, okay. And I'd like call him at work like a lot, and he'd be like, you got this. And then finally, like one day I got it, and I was like,
yeah. I hope to those who are watching and listening that you get what you get from this is that we don't know what we're doing. Like, we try to make it look like we got everything together, but we don't. I don't know. I'll talk.
I feel like you just have to do it a lot, and then you're good to go.
And then you find the mistakes. Oh, Sabir's here. Okay.
No, sorry to interrupt. The conversation was so enjoyable. We do have like a few audience questions, and I think you set up the perfect transition to our first one, which is, as you both developed your style and gained an audience over the years, have you found it's easier or harder to experiment? And I'll direct that question first at you, Huda, and then we'll go to Jackie.
If you look at my very first comics, they were stick figures, literal stick figures, and no color. And I didn't know how I wanted it to look. And so it did take, I've been doing this now for 4 years. So it did take a while, but you develop it, you kind of work with, you realize what you like and then what you don't like. I follow a lot of comic artists. And so I was taking a little bit of what they did and trying to see, do I like this, or does that work for me? And then your own style kind of just develops just from trial and error. And like Jackie was saying, it's just the more you do it, the more you practice, the better you do get at it. And yeah, the safer you feel at kind of breaking the rules that you've just learned, because you know how to break them and you know how to use them to your effect to create, I think, the effect that you want on people. So I don't know how long it took, but it just kind of is gradual. And then you make mistakes, like me and Jackie were saying. And then something so obvious that seems like it should have been obvious, you're like, oh, I should have known this. I suck. Like, but that's just me. Jackie.
Oh, Yeah, I mean, it definitely it gets easier to experiment also because sometimes I'm like a little afraid, but then I just call it a challenge. And then everyone's like, yay! And so then I thought the hardest one I did was Inktober because my comics, I didn't realize how heavily they rely on color. So to make like 31 black and white comics, I was like, I I have this fear that I'm gonna break my audience, like by like bending it too far. You know, it's like drawing me as a lobster too many times, and then people are like, I don't want that anymore. And then Underpants and Overbites is like dead to them. And so I'm just getting to this point where like I like go on Patreon and like everyone's still there, and I'm like,
You like me?
cool. Yeah, I think they're gonna stay. Mostly, it's just their cards get declined sometimes. It's not personal, but it's easier for me to experiment because I feel more confident in. I mean, I'll never like make art with certainty. Every day, I'm like,
Yeah.
who am I? But I just feel more confident in what Underpants and Overbites is, which is just a big experiment. And like, I don't really owe anyone anything. I just owe myself the art that I want to make, and then my audience can see that I'm having a good time.
Yeah.
And if that means me with like a weird propeller hat on for 10 comics in a row, then that's what you're gonna get, because it's gonna be a weird time.
My experiment is adding a nose to my characters. I did that one time and nobody could stop talking about it. And it was an accident. It was truly an accident.
Anyway. Was it like a piece of dust?
It was a nose I actually drew because I was testing out and I totally forgot to delete it or take it off when I actually published. And they're like, she has a nose. I'm like, oh, I forgot. I broke my own rule.
Everything's cuter without a nose.
I think so. Except for Voldemort. He's not that cute.
Yeah.
Our next question is from Christina, who says, how do y'all feel about people saying they relate to you by your comics? Does it motivate you to continue and be more yourself through your comics? Does it register at all? And by does it register at all, I would clarify that as like, does knowing people say they relate to you when reading your comics affect how your creative process unfolds and how much you're willing to reveal in the comics? Why don't we start with Jackie for this one and then go Huda after?
I mean, it makes me feel great. I love it because I've always been weird, and I love finding more weird people. Not that they're weird, you know, you're just people. I'm just a person too, but I don't want to offend my beloved readers. But like, I love when someone will email me and be like, I'm 35 and this is Tutu, my plushie that I've been with my whole life. And I'm like, yes, and, you know, like I knew it. And then Butter Udder and I high five because, but to me, I mean, it helps me keep going, and it helps me like, it definitely motivates me to keep telling stories about myself because obviously people are like relating to it. And I mean, it sways me in like a certain direction. Like sometimes I go too far and people are like, no. And then I'm like, okay. And then there's like one person in a corner that's like, yeah, that's so me. And I'm like, cool. But yes, but I'm gonna go a little over here. But mostly, it's amazing. And I love that. I just like shining light on people's inner feelings that maybe they didn't even know they had.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel when I read your stuff. It's like, oh man, I relate to this. I didn't even know that was something I could relate to, and I do, and I love you for it. So it's wonderful. Like it helps me kind of get in touch with my own, like, you know, feelings. But no, I do. I get a lot of those messages, and more often than not, I feel like, oh, I should stop. I should quit. Like this is, you know, what more can I really add to the discourse? I mean, how many more comics could I talk about people saying my name wrong? And so it's like, but then I'll get more people who do say that they see themselves in the comic, and growing up not having that type of representation or not even really being able to relate to any. And I love comics, Sunday comics. I've loved them since I was like, you know, old enough to read them. That's how I learned English, I think, was Garfield. And it was just, you know, wonderful. But I never saw anyone that looked like me or shared the Muslim experience or anything. So to hear people say that, and that it makes them proud of their identity and proud to live as a Muslim, or to be proud to wear hijab or something, it really it's so emotional, and it's really powerful for me, and it keeps me going. So it's definitely it definitely keeps me going for sure to hear. But the biggest, I think, shock was hearing that people who are not Muslim who relate to the comic, because when I first started out, I really thought this was so niche. Only Muslims are going to get it, specifically like hijabis, because the whole thing is about being hot in this, and you're like, like that's the title. But then to hear so many people and talk about it, and I think realizing that the overall theme of just feeling like an outsider was something that people really related to, and I didn't even think of that when I was making it, and that it really helped me as well, I think, to become more vulnerable and share more, because I'm like, hopefully maybe the other stuff that I've been kind of like hiding deep down is something that other people can relate to as well. So it's been really a wonderful experience. Good question.
Great answers. And then as our last question of the evening, let's see. Well, it would be good if I decided which one was the best one to end on.
Take your time.
Okay, how about this one to end with? Jackie, do your glasses keep the hair away from your eyes, or does your hair keep your glasses secure to your face?
I think my hair is just permanently stuck in this shape, and they don't really. It's just permanently frozen like that. So that's there you go. That's it. It's a weird last question, but thanks.
It seems fitting with the conversation. The two.
I'm like, I don't have confidence. I want bangs. I like bangs.
I like them too. They're lovely. My hair's fine. Thanks for asking.
On that note, thank you both so much for just a really fun evening. To our audience, thank you for joining us tonight. If you haven't purchased Vulnerability Is My Superpower yet, you can click on the green button center of the screen that just says Purchase Vulnerability Is My Superpower. And as a fun gift for everyone who's attending, Jackie has provided us with some coloring sheets that we're going to email to all of you tonight. And if you'd like to purchase any of Huda's books, including pre-ordering her newest one, or her forthcoming one, I've dropped links in the chat to the side. So
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful evening.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is so fun.
Bye, Jackie. Bye, Sabir. Bye, everyone.